You know, whenever a conflict blows up on the news, we're just slammed with this constant barrage of headlines, strikes, statements, you name it. But what if we're looking at it all wrong? Today, we're going to dig into a really powerful framework that helps us see past all that chaos and analyze geopolitical conflict for what it really is: a structured, even predictable system. So let's start with a really basic question. Do you think of a war as just a battlefield, one side against the other? Or could it be something way more complex, like an interconnected system, where a push in one spot causes a ripple effect somewhere else, often in ways you'd never expect? See, the problem with just reacting to every single headline is that it's like trying to understand someone's health by only looking at their latest cough. You completely miss the underlying disease. This kind of event-driven analysis, well, it almost always leads to a total misdiagnosis of the real risks and where things are actually headed. Okay, so to fix that, we've got to start by building a blueprint. We have to actually map out the architecture of the conflict, figure out its core parts, and see how they all plug into each other. This is the foundation for everything else we're going to do. And this brings us to the absolute core idea of this framework. A major conflict, like the one involving Iran, the US, and Israel, isn't just one war. It's what you'd call a multi-system strategic contest. You've got the military layer, sure, but you also have the critical layer of regime survival, the use of proxies to create chaos, the impact on global energy, and, of course, the positioning of outside powers like China. If you ignore any one of these, your whole analysis is going to be flawed. So how does pressure actually move through this big, complex system? Well, it flows through four key channels. The military one, that's the obvious one, strikes and counterstrikes. But the political channel, which is all about a regime's internal stability, that can be just as critical. The economic channel can turn a local fight into a global crisis through oil prices. And then there's the strategic channel, which is the high-stakes game of nuclear threats and global power moves. All right, so once we have the architecture down, we need to populate it. And that means getting to know the components, the key players in the system, because each one has its own goals, its own tools, and its own weaknesses. First up, the Iran system. Its ultimate goal isn't just winning a battle. It is, first and foremost, regime survival. All its tools, the missiles, the drones, and especially that network of proxies, they're all designed to make it too costly for anyone to launch a decisive attack. So this shifts the whole question from can they win on the battlefield to can the regime politically survive all this external pressure? Now, the US system is playing a completely different game. It's a strategy you could call bounded coercion, basically applying just enough pressure to get what it wants without starting a massive war. The goal is to weaken Iran's capabilities and protect US bases, but, and this is so important, without getting sucked into a huge regional conflict. It's this incredibly delicate tightrope walk. Can you inflict enough pain without the whole thing spiraling out of control? Then you've got the Israel system, which is, let's be honest, probably the biggest wildcard in the whole system. Its goals are existential, taking out major threats and making sure Iran never gets a nuclear weapon. With its top-notch intelligence and a proven willingness to escalate, the million-dollar question becomes, will it stick to the US strategy of restraint, or will it decide to go its own way, on its own timeline? And finally, you absolutely cannot forget the proxy network system. Players like Hezbollah and the Houthis have a vital role here. They allow Iran to spread the conflict far and wide, causing all sorts of problems, disrupting shipping, attacking bases, all without leaving any direct Iranian fingerprints. And that makes it really tough for their enemies to decide how to retaliate. Okay, we've built the blueprint, we know the players, but here's the thing. A static map is pretty much useless. This system is alive, it's changing constantly, which is why the very next step is to create a dashboard to monitor its health in real time. The whole point here is to go from theory to practice. We take that system map and we turn it into a living, breathing tool that is constantly listening for signals, those key little indicators that tell us if pressure is building up, if a part of the system is about to break, or if the whole thing is tilting toward instability. So what exactly are we looking for? Well, for Iran, the most important internal signal isn't missile counts, it's regime cohesion. Are we seeing cracks forming among the elite? Are there sudden, unexplained shuffles in military leadership? For the US, we watch strike intensity. Are they hitting a wider range of targets? That tells you their strategy is changing. And for Israel, you just have to listen to the rhetoric. A change in tone from leaders can be a huge indicator of their appetite for escalation. And it's not just about the main actors. The dashboard is also tracking those huge ripple effects. Houthi attacks in the Red Sea aren't just regional noise.
They're a direct signal that a global economic channel is under pressure. We also watch things like China's oil imports from Iran. That's Iran's economic lifeline, and the flow of tankers through the Strait of Hormuz, which is the single biggest sign of a potential oil shock.
So you take all these different data points, dozens of them, and they all get boiled down into one simple, high-level weekly assessment. This is the snapshot. In a single glance, you can see the overall risk levels for war, for regime stability, for an oil shock, and for nuclear escalation. And crucially, you can see which way they're trending. Okay, now for the real payoff. How do we take all this amazing data and turn it into something genuinely useful for the people who have to make the big decisions? This is where the user interface comes in, translating raw intelligence into actionable strategy. So, when a big event happens, a major strike, a huge protest, an attack on a ship, it triggers an alert. But instead of just a frantic headline, the event gets processed through this structured template. It forces the analyst to immediately answer, what just happened? Why does it matter to the system? How does this change our risk assessment? And what specific signals do we need to be watching like a hawk right now? So that detailed, systematic alert gives you the raw intelligence. But let's be real. Senior leaders don't have time to get buried in the operational details. The final and most crucial step is to distill all of this analysis into a high-level briefing that actually speaks their language. And this is where the magic happens, the translation step. That analysis of proxy attacks and regime stability gets translated into what it means for business and for strategy. We're talking direct implications for energy prices, higher risk for your supply chains, global inflation getting touchier, and the wider geopolitical rivalry between the US and China heating up. This is how intelligence actually becomes useful for making decisions. So why does any of this matter? Because this whole systematic approach lifts us out of the daily noise. It gives us a clear, structured way to understand, to monitor, and even to anticipate what's coming next in a super complex environment. If you take just one thing away today, let it be this idea right here. This conflict isn't just a scoreboard of wins and losses on a battlefield. It's a system for transmitting pressure, military, political, and economic pressure. And if you understand how that pressure flows, you understand the conflict itself. And it all comes together in these 4 logical steps. First, you build the map of the system. Second, you monitor its health with a live dashboard. Third, you interpret any shocks with a structured alert system. And fourth, you translate it all for senior leadership. It's a complete intelligence framework from start to finish. So, the next time a major global crisis is all over the news, you'll have the toolkit. You can start asking the right questions. What are the systems at play here? What are the channels for transmitting pressure? Who are the real players, and what do they really want? You'll be able to look right past the noise and actually see the machine at work.